It's 6:45 a.m. This is the news broadcast from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation, edited by Danushka Madavala, read by Soundhi Tavam. Sri Lanka celebrates World Children's and Elders' Day today. Issuing a message on the occasion, President Ranil Wickremesinghe says that the contemporary world that adults live in is not the world children see. Japan provides emergency grant aid of $3.5 million to Sri Lanka. President Ranil Wickremesinghe returns to Sri Lanka after a successful tour of Japan and the Philippines. A luxury tourist train service will commence from this weekend from Fort to Kandy. The President proposes to the ADB to establish an international university on climate change in Sri Lanka. Russia completes land grab as Kyiv's territory annexed. Sri Lanka Legends beat the West Indies and qualified for the Road Safety World Series finals. The finals will be played at 7:30 p.m. today between India and Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka celebrates World Children's and Elders' Day today. The national ceremony of the World Children's Day celebration will be held today at Setsiripaya Battaramulla. Another celebration is scheduled to be held today at the Sugatadasa Stadium. A number of functions are being organised in many areas today to mark World Children's Day and Elders' Day. World Children's Day was first established in 1954 as Universal Children's Day and is celebrated on the 20th of November each year to promote international togetherness, awareness among children worldwide, and improving children's welfare. November 20th is an important date as it is the date in 1959 when the UN General Assembly adopted the Declaration of the Rights of the Child. It is also the date in 1989 when the UN General Assembly adopted the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Since 1990, World Children's Day also marks the anniversary of the date that the UN General Assembly adopted both the Declaration and the Convention on Children's Rights. Mothers and fathers, teachers, nurses, doctors, government leaders and civil society activists, religious and community elders, corporate moguls and media professionals, as well as young people and children themselves, can play an important part in making World Children's Day relevant for their societies, communities and nations. World Children's Day offers each of us an inspirational entry point to advocate, promote and celebrate children's rights, translating into dialogues and action that will build a better world for children. Though the World Children's Day officially falls on November 20th, Sri Lanka and several other countries celebrate the day today. Issuing a message on the occasion, President Ranil Wickremesinghe says that the contemporary world that adults live in is not the world children see. It is very simple and delicate. They thirst for curiosity. As adults, we should understand this wisely and make sure to create a unique world for them, he said. The President in his message said that if we consider the past few years, it is evident that the present society is very different from the social background in which the children lived a few years ago. There are many disclosures made by the media in this regard. In such a background, it is his duty as the head of state to ensure that all the children of the country receive a balanced and nutritious diet containing the right amount of calories. The President said his mission at the moment was to create a developed country for the future generations of this land. It is our duty to take care of the elderly community who have made unprecedented sacrifices to preserve the children's pleasant childhood and the country's betterment. It is interconnected with our culture. Food, education, sport, recreation, rest, sleep, mental and health well-being are only a few of the children's requirements. We are both culturally and legally bound to ensure these facilities. He said it was his view that it is a responsibility of all parents, teachers and civil society representatives, apart from the government, to fulfill these needs, he said. The President requested everyone to join hands in committing themselves to ushering in an era where all children and elders will be taken care of compassionately. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. President Ranil Wickremesinghe proposed to establish an international university on climate change in Sri Lanka, with the support of the Asian Development Bank in order to enable students from any country in the world to engage in educational activities. President Wickremesinghe made this proposal during a meeting with the President of the Asian Development Bank, Masatsugu Asakawa, held last morning at the Asian Development Bank headquarters in Manila. The ADB President welcomed President Wickremesinghe on his arrival at the ADB headquarters. President Wickremesinghe expressed his gratitude to the President of the Asian Development Bank for the emergency assistance provided to Sri Lanka in the past, discussed the further strengthening of the long-standing relationship between Sri Lanka and the ADB. A luxury tourist train service will commence from today from Fort to Kandy. The service will be available only on weekends. The train will leave the Fort station at 6:30 a.m. and reach Kandy by 9:18 a.m. It will depart Kandy at 4:50 p.m. and arrive at the Fort railway station by 7:40 p.m. in the night. The seat reservation facility is available in this service. Japan's diplomatic missions in Rome, Geneva and New York signed the official documents to commit the emergency grant aid of $3.5 million for Sri Lanka with the WFP, IFRC and the UNICEF headquarters. This emergency assistance is to address the challenging economic and humanitarian situation for the people of Sri Lanka. With the implementation of earlier assistance worth $3 million announced on May 20th, this brings Japanese government support in response to the current situation up to $6.5 million. As a long-standing friend of Sri Lanka, Japan hopes that this assistance will contribute to overcoming the hardship faced by the people of Sri Lanka. With that, we conclude local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
After concluding a successful official visit to Japan and the Philippines, President Ranil Wickremesinghe returned to the island last evening. The president first went to Japan to participate at the funeral of the late Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. President Ranil Wickremesinghe met the Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and His Majesty Emperor Naruhito during his tour. After that, President Wickremesinghe arrived in the Philippines and held talks with the Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. The Sri Lankan president attended the 55th Asian Development Bank annual meeting of the Board of Governors. That came to you in the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
And we move on to Watchlight. The scheduled power cuts for residential areas will continue today as well. The Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka yesterday approved a 2-hour and 20-minute power cut for groups A to L and P to W. Accordingly, a 1-hour power cut will be enforced during the day and 1-hour and 20-minute power disruption at night. Well, that came to you in Watchlight. Onto a bulletin of world news. Making headlines, Russia completes land grab as Kyiv's territory annexed. Prince William makes online safety plea after Molly Russell verdict. And Cambodian team hunting looted treasures visits the UK museums. Russia has formally annexed 4 occupied regions of Ukraine in a move sparking international condemnation. President Vladimir Putin signed accession treaties with the regions. Moscow installed leaders at a ceremony at the Kremlin's opulent at St. George's Hall yesterday. Watched by members of the political elite, he declared the regions would forever be part of Russia. Kyiv reacted by launching a new fast-track bid to join the NATO alliance. Flanked by his Prime Minister and the Speaker of Parliament, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Ukraine had been a de facto member of the security bloc and accused Moscow of redrawing borders using murder, blackmail, mistreatment and lies. The NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg was reluctant to be drawn on the bid, saying the decision rested with the bloc's 30 members. But he condemned Moscow's annexation of Ukrainian territory, calling the move the most serious escalation since the start of the war. Prince William says online safety for young people should be a prerequisite, not an afterthought, after an inquest into 14-year-old Molly Russell's death. A coroner concluded that the teenager from London died from an act of self-harm while suffering depression and the negative effects of online content. Molly's father, Ian, called for urgent changes to make children safer online. The prince said, quote, "No parent should ever have to endure what Ian Russell and his family have been through," unquote. It is unusual for any member of the royal family to comment following any legal proceedings, but mental health is a topic on which the new Prince of Wales has campaigned on regularly in the past. Two major British museums are opening up their collections to archaeologists and officials from Cambodia in response to allegations that valuable items are sitting illegally in the UK. The first visit is the Victoria and Albert Museum on Friday, followed by one to the British Museum in October. Cambodia wants the UK to help recover antiques, it says, were stolen from its temples during the years of conflict. Both museums have said they are transparent about the origins of the items. The Cambodian delegation hopes to discuss the provenance of objects in the two collections and to examine them in person. That concludes world news, and on to development news. The Colombo Stock Exchange and the University of Rajarata jointly announced the signing of an MOU to formalise their collaborative efforts. The MOU calls for cooperation in improving the financial literacy among undergraduates of the state universities in Sri Lanka. The collaboration wishes to promote capital market education among undergraduates by working together on a number of mutually beneficial strategic initiatives. Well, we move on to sports news.
Sports News is brought to you by...
With many values that bind us beyond the transaction, we are Sampath Bank. We present your future.
The Sri Lanka Legends defeated the West Indies Legends by 14 runs to qualify for the finals of the Road Safety World Series in India. Batting first, Sri Lanka scored 172 runs with a loss of 9 wickets in their allotted 20 overs. Ishan Jayaratne's 31 runs was the maximum score for Sri Lanka. In reply, the West Indies were able to score only 158 runs for the loss of 7 wickets in 20 overs. Narsingh Deorin scored 63 runs and Nuwan Kulasekara was adjudged as the man of the match. The final match of the Road Safety World Series will be played between Sri Lanka and India today in Raipur. The match will commence at 7:30 p.m. Sri Lanka time, and Sri Lanka qualified for the finals for the second consecutive year. And that's sports news. And we move on to business news. Nike has warned that its profits will continue to be squeezed by the strong dollar and discounts aimed at cutting its stockpile of goods. The sportswear giant, which makes over half of its revenue outside North America, doubled how much it thinks the soaring dollar will hit its annual revenue to $4 billion. Meanwhile, the firm's inventories rose more than 40% compared to a year ago. After the announcement, Nike shares fell by more than 9% in extended trading. The firm said profit margins had been hit by increased transport costs and higher markdowns. And that's business news.
Economic news, courtesy of...
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibility. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
UK's Prime Minister Liz Truss has admitted that there has been disruption in the UK economy following the mini-budget. After unveiling £45 billion sterling of tax cuts funded by borrowing last week, the pound slumped and the Bank of England spent billions shoring up pension funds. Writing in The Sun, she insisted the government had acted decisively to help people with the cost of living. But the announcements were not accompanied by the usual economic forecast, which spooked investors. She has resisted calls to bring forward publication of the independent fiscal watchdog's assessment of her tax plans. And that's economic news.
LOLC Finance is taking the power of innovation to the next level, winning 5 golds at the Technovation Awards 2022, leading the digital revolution with cutting-edge interbanking digital payments. LOLC Finance claims the overall gold award, whilst also claiming an extraordinary victory in digital banking. LOLC Finance will continue to innovate with the next generation digitalization of financial services, delivering a superior customer experience.
On to the weather report. The Met Department says the showery condition is expected to enhance to some extent in the southwestern part of the island during the next few days. Showers will occur at times in the western and Sabragama provinces and in the Kandy, Nuwara, Galle and Matara districts. Fairly heavy rainfalls of about 75 millimetres may occur at some places. Several spells of showers will occur in the northwestern province. Showers or thundershowers will occur at a few places in the Uva province and in the Ampara district during the evening or night. Strong winds about 50 kilometres per hour can be expected at times over the western slopes of the Central Hills, northern, north central and southern provinces and in the Trincomalee district. To conclude this bulletin of news, a recap of the headlines. Sri Lanka celebrates World Children's and Elders' Day today. Issuing a message on the occasion, President Ranil Wickremesinghe says that the contemporary world that adults live in is not the world children see. Japan provides emergency grant aid of $3.5 million to Sri Lanka. President Ranil Wickremesinghe returns to the country after a successful tour in Japan and the Philippines. A luxury tourist train service will commence from this weekend from Fort to Kandy. The President proposes to the ADB to establish an international university on climate change in Sri Lanka. Russia completes land grab as Kiev's territory annexed. And the Sri Lanka Legends beat the West Indies and qualified for the Road Safety World Series final. The finals will be played at 7:30 p.m. today between India and Sri Lanka. That concludes this morning's news broadcast.